Please join me in welcoming our next presenters who have an eye towards a hopeful and sustainable future for all of us. Christopher Breedlove is the head of Burners Without Borders, whose goal is to unlock the innate skills of local communities to solve problems that bring about meaningful change. Just heard a little bit about that. Laura Day joined Burning Man as its Associate Director of Event Operations last year and brings her deep experience around environmental stewardship, diversity, empowerment to the organization and the event. And Zach Cirivello oversees Fly Ranch's communications, community engagement, affiliations, and site operations as the operations manager. They will be sharing how we can collectively create a brighter and greener future through the Burning Man Project 2030 Environmental Sustainability Roadmap. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Iris. Good morning, everybody. Anyways, I'm Christopher Breedlove. Thanks so much for doing that introduction. Super excited to do this with you today with Laura and Zach. And I believe you can see the screen. And for those of you who know, and for those of you who don't, Burning Man did something really amazing last year, which is put out this really audacious environmental sustainability roadmap. And what it allows us to do is, as we look into the future, we get to look at what the Burning Man principles mean so many years after they've been written, back in 2004, 2005. And when we look at the Leave No Trace principle, which I'm going to read real quick, which is, quote, "Our community respects the environment. We are committed to leaving no physical trace of our activities wherever possible, wherever we gather. We clean up after ourselves and endeavor, whenever possible, to leave such places in a better state than when we found them." And so when we kind of get that last part, in a better state than when we found them, we get to kind of look at that whole principle and see that the language is actually way more holistic in its original intention, which is kind of where this sustainability roadmap started. So how are we going to tackle something so complicated like creating a sustainable Burning Man? And part of that is really looking at the culture and the circles of influence. And so if you see this slide, you know, we kind of have, as an organization, Burning Man has the most influence at the top, and then the culture has the most influence at the bottom. So kind of looking at these different ideas of the properties and offices, Fly Ranch, which is 12 miles away from Black Rock City, which obviously has to have a ton of collaboration from the theme camps, the art cars, and the art collectives, and then the global network, which is all of you.
So why should Burning Man care about sustainability? Well, Burning Man is the most tangible expression of our culture. Our actions and choices are noticed, respected, and emulated. Our global cultural reach has real impact. What we do matters. Civil rights, environmental activism, human rights, LGBTQ rights, most major movements have been grassroots driven. What organization is more grassroots, innovative, passionate, and has the skills to solve problems in extreme conditions than Burning Man? This is what we're good at. Plus, we are amidst a global ecological crisis, and there is only one Earth, so it's kind of the most important thing. The amount of carbon produced at Black Rock City in 2007 was equivalent to about 12,000 homes' annual energy use in the US, 11.3 million gallons of gasoline, 232,000 barrels of oil. That's not insignificant, but we can assume that this has increased dramatically. Our population has nearly doubled since then. It was about 47,000 in 2007. More people are flying, bringing more elaborate setups, air conditioners in their trailers, etc. So it's likely more than double that now. Do you know the carbon offset of your event? We do have a basic tool here. It's linked at the bottom. You'll get these slides, I believe, so that you can learn a little bit more. It's not a perfect tool. It doesn't really fit our events perfectly, but it is helpful to give you a ballpark estimate and provide a baseline to work off of. BlackRock Labs and Burning Man Project is partnered to develop a more in-depth burn-centric calculator tool for us, which will be available to you when it's ready. So in the roadmap talking about, there's 3 main goals outlined. The first one is no matter out of place, and that is to eliminate all non-sustainable waste streams from Burning Man events and operations. Many of us take great care to recycle and compost and reuse everything we possibly can wherever possible at home, but oftentimes this goes out the window when planning and packing for the playa, your regional burn, or whatever camping event. This is something that needs to shift. How are our products made? In what packaging? What are we doing with the packaging? How did we transport it? How did it end up here? And where does it end up when we're through? What trace are we actually leaving on the earth? It's time we begin assuming responsibility for the packaging, toxicity, and products we purchase and consume. This is radical self-reliance. This is leaving no trace.
So goal number 2 is to be regenerative. And I think most of us know that kind of the status quo of the world right now is actually an extractive model. And so it's a negative loss for the planet when a lot of these actions are happening. And the word sustainability is about going to a neutral place, and going to regenerative is about being net positive. And so our big goal with this is that by the end of the next decade, we aim for it to be better for the ecology of Earth, for Burning Man to exist than to not exist. And we're going to have to do this through prototyping solutions both on playa as well as out in the world. And we can't do a net positive Burning Man culture without taking into account that entire scope of the global community.
And our third goal is that's listed in the roadmap is to be carbon negative. And essentially this means that you're pulling more carbon out of an atmosphere than you're putting in. It's kind of the invisible leave no trace. It's an ambitious goal, and it will happen iteratively, first by becoming carbon neutral and then by becoming carbon negative. It will be a multi-pronged approach. To be truly carbon negative culturally on a holistic level, we have to look beyond our event and other event productions to find ways that we can engage the world. There's several ways to do this. First is reducing our emissions through transition to renewable technologies in event production and other activities. And then engaging in offsets and carbon sequestration, either by removing carbon dioxide from the air and sequestering it in rocks, or doing direct air capture. And then there are some other things that we can do that are fairly simple outside of the event, things like planting trees, developing composting systems, really creating regenerative loop technologies to reach a point of being carbon negative holistically in all of our activities as an organization, as a culture. We have several levers of influence to help us accomplish that. One of those is Fly Ranch, which is one of the projects that I spend a lot of time working on. There's a lot of information about Fly Ranch. There's a link to our website available when you get these notes. I would encourage you to check that out and pursue it. But I got a couple of points that I'm gonna hit. It's a 4,000 acre property, as Breedlove mentioned. It's about 12 miles north of where we produce the event. We've been hosting projects and gatherings over the last 3 years. The first of the things that I want to hit is sort of land stewardship. It's the way in which we approached the land. We did a 14-month environmental fellowship through the Burning Man Fellows program. Dr. Lisa Beers came and just observed. Very basic permaculture principle. It's the observation period. At least a year. We did 14 months. And through that, Skirpus looked at flora and fauna, the plants and the animals, weather patterns, sunrise, sunset, wind, water, just to give us an in-depth overview of the current environmental system inputs and outputs, and where we can have influence to create a more beneficial impact with those resources that we have. Really important to understand space, whether it's here or a property you might be considering or having, or even your home. The second is that we are in the process of a multidisciplinary design challenge. So we partnered with a group called the Land Art Generator Initiative. They've spent a decade producing site-specific design challenges for works of art that generate power. And we've sort of partnered with them and brought their expertise in their platform and sort of our community's experience in remote desert building and said, let's open up to a design challenge that's not only looking for works of art that generate power, but create additional categories for works of art that create water systems and shelter and food or agriculture systems and regenerative technologies. This is a design challenge that is currently open. On the slide, you can see that it closes May 2020. Over the last week, we've been talking with our partners and looking what's going on in the world. We're going to postpone that submission deadline. So it'll be greater inclusivity for people. And right now, the date that we're targeting is about October 31st for the closing of that. And we'll be sharing that information out later this week. I would encourage you to check that out. Again, link will be in the presentation when you have that. And the third thing is the relationship with local communities and the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe in Nixon. You know, we are prioritizing relationships with local communities because sustainability is not just environmental. It's a lot of things. Any existential risk that we face, including what's going on in the world right now, is a threat to sustainability. And one of the ways to achieve a more sustainable or regenerative state is to be a good community partner as part of an interdependent social network. And that's really important. This is a slide that's from Planet Homes. They did an eco sprint as part of a BWB event. Burners Without Borders has hosted a number of events at Fly Ranch. At Fly Ranch ourselves, we've hosted about 33 campouts, each with a unique and distinct theme or focus. And we have the opportunity, unlike a burn, which is all the things to all the people at the same time, we have the advantage of time. So we can take a group and go really intimately and deep around a focus and bring out new ideas and sort of dig into that in an exciting way. So this is one slide from the eco sprint that had been happening. And it sort of looks at some of the partners that we've got to engage on that social sustainability level. These are events that we've been doing with no generators, no bottled water, composting toilets, iteratively scaling up. It's an open source model, like Black Rock City is to regional events, we are for community land-based projects. We also have a number of other levers of influence in the valley in northern Nevada. For instance, this is 360 acres that exists on the edge of Gerlach. One of the things that Black Rock Labs have been doing, in addition to other tools, is conducting a feasibility study for what a solar offset might look like for Black Rock City. Take about 20 megawatts on 75 acres. There's also potential for wind, solar, geothermal. Between these natural resources and the creative potential of the Burning Man community, the possibilities are really, really vast for some of the things that we can do to start to accomplish these goals.
So we are looking at many areas where we can improve our operations, communicate our intentions to the global community, gather support and buy-in, and activate our network to significantly reduce our impact as a collective network. This is a heavy lift, but we are opening the box. To this end, at Burning Man Project, we're in the process of establishing a sustainability department. This includes the Black Rock City Sustainability Team, which is made up of significant stakeholders, project managers, and those with environmental expertise who are crucial to moving the needle forward and reducing the environmental impact of Black Rock City. We're taking our goal of being regenerative and carbon negative by 2030 seriously and putting the pieces in place to be successful. However, in order to be successful, we will all need to share in this mission. Many of you have already made significant progress in designing your own events in an earth-conscious way, which is awesome, and we take much inspiration from. So as we continue to create this framework, we're excited to learn more about the sustainability projects and systems that you've already developed and implemented. We want to hear from you, and we want to learn from you. Together, we'll create an organizational and operational template to share a replicable model for our greater burner community and beyond, which will be a tangible, celebrated product of this work.
So, you know, we can do a lot, like we said, at Fly Ranch and in Black Rock City, kind of, but we really need this global community involvement because we can't do this without you to reach all of these main goals. And so how are we creating portals for you all to communicate and work with us on these things? In this next slide, you can just see a couple of these projects up on top. These are 16 projects that were all created by burners at a summit we did at Fly Ranch, all around sustainability and regenerative culture. And so we're already starting to solicit these projects, and we know that there's so much more happening out in the network. So we have 3 questions that we kind of want to ask real quickly during this presentation, which are posed to the global community to help us think about these goals, which is 1, how do we connect the world of projects already happening within the Burning Man ecosystem? We know there's already so many projects happening within the global network, and how do we all get aware of them? And so just as two quick examples in this slide, I took a picture from Microburn in the UK, where they planted a bunch of trees after their burn, and also another photo of Africa Burn building toilets in South Africa that are prototypes from their event. The second question we want to ask you is, how do we connect burner infrastructure with projects that are in need? At the ELS in the past before, I've talked about how theme camps have become really great partners of Burners Without Borders. You can see some photos up here of matching infrastructure to situations in need, like providing kitchens to hurricanes, like Red Lightning providing power and winterization at Standing Rock, or you can see that photo of Mayan Warrior providing a reefer truck after some fires. But it's not just theme camps, it's also regional burns that have assets. And so how could we imagine creating a global asset map of this infrastructure so that for the months of the year where our infrastructure isn't being used, it can be used for social impact projects? And then the third question that we want to pose is, how might we connect burner projects with long-term land projects? In just a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from John Liu from the Ecosystem Restoration Camps. But I just want to point out, and I'll share this link afterwards, I actually made this map, and you can see this here, where the blue dots represent ecosystem restoration camps around the world, and the red dots represent regional burns. And so we can actually see in France, they're very, very close. In the UK, Nest and one of the camps are in the exact same town, as well as an unofficial Burning Man event in Mexico, as well as an ecosystem restoration camp. And so just like at Fly Ranch, where Fly Ranch now has infrastructure, mostly from theme camps that's powering its infrastructure for those 10 months of the year where it's not being used, how could we imagine this burner infrastructure being utilized on land projects that are doing this regenerative work? And so that's really just a call to action. Right there, you can see there's a couple of different ways you can engage with us: by becoming a resource partner, by telling us what you're up to in a survey, or we're going to have an upcoming online Green Theme Camp Summit to help theme camps think about their infrastructure. And so those are all ways you can get involved right now.
So as we look at these goals and as we plan and dream into the future, it's kind of important to recognize that Burning Man is not a utopia. And accomplishing these goals won't make us a utopia, but we have the potential to unlock the creativity of this wide, diverse community and help solve some of the biggest challenges that we have ever faced as a species. And I fully believe that it's within the ability of the Burning Man community to rise to these challenges and to do it where we are, to start there. We have the opportunity to create a massive beneficial impact that radiates out from our big, beautiful city and other events beyond the trash fence.
This is what we will continue to build: a beautiful temporary city, an event, and shared suffering is kind of our thing after all. We can increase the interconnected network within our city, linking our communities and resources, ideas, skills, and technologies to become more sustainable together. This is our communal effort. Our civic responsibility is to become better stewards of the land and the planet. We can further activate our shared consciousness, our collective global brain. This is a powerful thing.
So what could our global impact be? How does our global community come together to support these goals? With our shared vision and our collective action and prototyping, we can accomplish unimaginable things. Perhaps some of these will be adopted by cities around the world. And if we're going to keep on talking about how we have one of the most creative, collaborative communities in the world, well, what happens when we start to focus that creativity and collaboration on one of the world's largest problems right now, which is climate change?
On behalf of Laura and Breedlove, we want to thank everyone for checking this out, whatever time it is where you are. A lot of appreciation to the ELS team for making this happen, despite what's going on. It's wonderful to be able to connect with the Burning Man community in some way, in some capacity. Here are some links that you all can check out and follow up for a lot of the things that we have talked about. They will be available in the slides when the presentation is available. And I think we got this. It's a challenge that I think we can take on. So we look forward to chatting more. You can reach out to Breedlove, Laura, and myself further if you have direct conversation you would like to have.